Thanks for joining us.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming over, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Where we want to start? Just from the top, Jack.
Yeah. So, what got you into folk music?
Ooh, good question. I didn't initially get into folk music. I think like any young teenager picking up guitar, you kind of start, at least anyone I knew started with a little bit heavier music or just any kind of rock music, stuff you heard guitars on.
Well, top 5 guitarists then. What are your top 5 guitars?
Oh my God. Well, okay, let's put it in terms of when I started to get you in that headspace. So this is like 13-year-old me. I would have said Eddie Van Halen, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton. You know, all the classics, all the standard rock stuff. But folk music, I kind of found that in my late teenage years. Just ironically, just in libraries. Like, I was talking about this a little bit with someone recently, and there was a time kind of more in the early 2000s where all libraries had these vast CD collections.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just go and get 50 CDs from the library and rip them all and just kind of like adventuring through like stuff I'd never heard before.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Michigan.
Okay.
Yep.
Cold.
And they let
Cold.
you check out 50 CDs at a time
Yeah.
from a library.
Yes. So the Grand
Was
Rapids,
that a warfare?
the Grand Rapids Public Library had a ridiculously generous checkout. I don't think that was the top either.
That's crazy.
I think you could do more.
And-
I was like,
but, like-
hang on, let's.
They had like new CDs.
but like
Yeah.
but how
Amazing.
How-
New, old, like rare collections of stuff.
for how long? For like a week? I'm sorry. This
Yeah,
is just
no, it's
I'm
a good
stuck on
question.
this. I'm a little stuck on this because
Maybe
you have 50 CDs that you could easily rip
Oh,
and
yeah.
then make a bunch of burned versions of that CD and then
Yeah.
try and sell those burned versions of the CD.
It wasn't even that industrious. I just would fill up hard drives with it, and it was just purely to scratch the itch of curiosity. I feel like, because I mean, there was all the things you could download, the LimeWires and Napsters and stuff like that in that era. But for some reason, the library to me was more interesting. It was like I could see a curated selection of stuff. It wasn't just like an infinite search I could do.
So you began your delve into folk after finding that library. What did you find in that library that you gravitated to a lot? I'm sure you found some old timey blues there too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think kind of the bridge or the gateway between those early classic rock type stuff to that was a lot of blues stuff. I started getting into a lot of like Elmore James stuff, where you'd read about all these Robert Johnson recordings and like kind of following those threads back. So the stuff I was finding in the library, I remember finding there was this collection of Alan Lomax's recordings called Southern Journey. It was like 12 or 13 different he would just go out field recording, collecting songs. And it was kind of a big thing in the 40s and 50s and even 60s of like preserving this vernacular music. And so this was like a big collection they had of that, and that was just like mind-blowing to me, because it'd be like, we're in New Orleans and there's this like fife and drum thing going on, or we'll go to the Ozark Mountains and it's like unaccompanied like oral tradition ballad singers who are just singing ballads that come from England but have been like in their families for 400 years or stuff like that, wild stuff. So any and everything, but also like checking out the Roots' new album or whatever else was there like that I didn't have access to. So yeah, hats off to the Grand Rapids Public Library.
I think that's interesting that you mentioned that some of these songs have been passed down in families for like hundreds of years, right? There's a lot of oral tradition in old style blues, and that is inherited into rock and roll. and more so even in Southern rock, right?
Right.
What can you talk about that oral tradition? What can you say about the art of storytelling in music?
Yeah, that's a fascinating topic. I think a lot of that stuff I was listening to coming from those traditions, but also kind of seeing how, especially with like the folk revival of the 60s, how people were taking that tradition and then expanding on it by writing topical songs or whatever about the current events. And, you know, Bob Dylan's the obvious example, but all those, that Greenwich Village folk scene was kind of big with that, people taking that traditional sound and then moving into other storytelling paths. And that's where I really connected with it. It was like you can use the structure and some of the same imagery and things to tell your own stories or to tell more modern stories.
Right.
So did not to cut, but
No, go ahead.
did they like? At what point did you get involved in actually making the music? Because I mean, this is like a fascinating entry into being able to listen to just such a wide variety of music as a kid.
Yeah.
When did you start playing?
What was the first instrument you picked up?
First instrument was a guitar. So around 13, I was playing electric guitar, trying to learn everything I heard on the radio, going through parents' record collections and stuff like that. My dad was super big into a couple Michigan based like 60s, 70s rock bands. Grand Funk Railroad was one of them.
Do you have a formative memory? Like, do you have like the moment where you picked up a guitar and you're like, okay, so this is it then?
Yeah. Ironically enough, I had a friend I remember in middle school who, for some reason, he was like, I went to a very small high school, so it was like not many people, not exposed to a ton of different stuff. But for whatever reason, he got an electric guitar, like, and I was on vacation with him once, and it was the first time I saw it, and he just played, you know, probably the simplest thing I'd ever heard, but it was like a Metallica riff or something. But he wasn't even plugged in.
Badass.
But just like playing it here, and I'll go, oh shit. That's like a formative memory for me. Like, even without, it was just the coolest shit. Like, and it was, you know, my grandpa had an acoustic guitar. I was never very interested in it or anything, but just for whatever reason, seeing it in that context, at that, you know, moment, adolescent kind of moment was it stuck with me. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna save up in the summer job and get one of those.
What was the summer job?
Construction.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you get the stuff you want as a man.
Yeah.
Gotta make shit.
You gotta make shit. Yep. And ironically, I'm still making shit too. So
Hey man, God bless you.
yeah. So those, yeah, it's interesting. You make me think about that. But those, damn, that summer was pretty.
That's formative,
Pretty formative.
in rock and roll too. That's also formative in rock and roll,
Yeah.
right? Like Led Zeppelin wasn't always Led Zeppelin.
Right.
I think are there any famous stories of people that were in construction that did rock and roll? There's got to be.
Oh, probably.
It's probably,
I'm
but
sure
I'm
the list is
blanking.
long,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
but
But no one ever wants to talk about it.
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
not
just
like- it's not gonna be at the forefront,
yeah,
is it?
yeah. No.
There's the story about Tony Iommi, the Black Sabbath guitar player. Like, he had, you know, they were from Birmingham, England, big factory place, and like his last day on the job, supposedly before he quit to be full-time Black Sabbath, like he cut off the tip of one of his fingers or something, and like apparently that informed his playing style, or like
Yeah.
and kind of how he came up with some of this iconic stuff, because he had to
The style.
simplify what he was doing,
Yeah,
Because he
Birmingham
cut off.
because he cut off the
came
tip
from,
of his finger.
yeah, he came from the heart of the industrial like revolution, essentially, Birmingham.
Yeah.
That is like
Yeah.
factory work right there.
He cut off his
Like,
finger, continued to play guitar.
Yeah. Oh God, that hurts.
Oh.
Think about. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
from Birmingham.
Yeah, but I can't think of any construction workers who, I'm sure there's tons.
But like I said, oral tradition is huge, right? And the stories that we hear through rock and roll are formative. One of the folk albums that is formative for me is Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, right?
Right.
That whole Never Coming Back Again, that whole guitar segment is what rumored to be impossible to play.
Right.
Can you think of any albums that directly inspired the way that you play now, this current version of you? What have you
Yeah.
digested that you're making now?
There's a lot of different things. I think a lot of what I'm doing in my current band and my solo stuff is based around alternate thumb finger picking, which a lot of that comes from, I mean, you can trace that again to the Alan Womack stuff, Mississippi John Hurt, or Elizabeth Cotton, who is a Chapel Hill guitarist. Some of that style, but also some of the slightly more angular indie rock type stuff that could, who knows, thousands of records I've listened to that comes from. But some big ones for me that are more modern would be Nico Case. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's kind of just dark country, a lot of folktale elements to it, but that was really influential to me when I was, about 20. M. Ward was another one that I was like, oh, this guy's combining all these sounds I like that, and doing it in a unique way. So people like that, yeah.
Have you ever considered making music that was not folk rock, but rather, pop?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I've put out any straight pop things, but I've been doing a lot of instrumental records. I put out a series of these 2 records that are called Yowls, and they're all like beat-based. I got really into sampling in the last few years.
Oh, are you a follower of hip hop as well?
Yeah.
Definitely wanted to ask about Yowl and Yowl 2. I listened to a lot of Yowl 2 recently.
Oh, cool.
And just, I guess, start with like the 2 definitions. I had them on my phone, but
Yeah.
if you could recall them and then just tell us how that, and I don't know if the word inspired some of these sounds or if the sounds inspired the word. Like, it's just interesting.
Yeah, can you actually, I'll try
pull
to
it
pull
up
it
'cause I
up
have it.
because
Yeah.
it's on the Bandcamp page,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yowls. Verb, to utter a long, distressful, or dismal cry, as an animal or a person. Howl. Noun, a collage of sampled vinyl, live instrumentation, CB radio curios, and other found sounds.
Right. Yeah, so that was just a little, artistic stretch for me of like almost making like the About This album like a dictionary entry that's like, in the noun, obviously, it was the definition I made up for it. But I don't even know why it's called Yowls, but the first one I did, I was like, this is going to be a sample-based. This is what I've been working on for like a year, all these, and trying to construct these songs in this way. But then when I did it again, I was like, I want that name again. It'd be cool to do a series of these. So I kind of elaborated on that a little bit more by making my fake dictionary entry definition of that.
When you're looking at samples, what are you looking like? What are you looking through? What are you?
Yeah. Most of this stuff has come from like my vinyl collection. So I got a couple different samplers over the last few years, but I got into all the great, hip hop producers who are making things from vinyl samples, chopping it up, making drum beats out of multiple drum kits from multiple different records, or like just found sounds in field recordings and stuff like that. Just
what is a found sound to you? What's a nice sound to you? What would make it onto a recording that you find out there?
I think the perfect example of found sound field recording style things. I also did a one-off recording that's like a 30 minute kind of ambient track that's called A Beginner's Guide to Summer Naps. And so this was literally like a project of...
It's like a mashup of...
It was like a nostalgia thing of me. For some reason, there was like, if you're taking a nap in summer, I had this like nice childhood memory of lawnmowers going outside. You can smell the grass. The windows open. There's cars going by. There's a baseball game. Like there's a. I sampled like a 1993 Tigers broadcast because my dad was big into the Detroit Tigers. Like,
Who's his favorite player?
and it just kind of like going through. Oh, favorite player, man. Who was the guy? Who was the big home run hitter in the early '90s?
Sammy Sosa.
No. Cecil Fielder.
Cecil Fielder.
Cecil
yeah,
Fielder,
and his
yeah.
son played baseball after
Yeah,
that.
deep in the recesses. Of
Yeah.
I do not watch baseball.
I've been
Yeah.
to Detroit. I actually went to a baseball game in Detroit one time.
Did
Not
you?
at the old stadium, but the new one. Yeah, I was like going to a hockey camp in Toronto. And me and my dad like the Yankees a lot, so we went and saw them in Detroit and then in Toronto as well. So it was pretty cool.
That's killer.
But yeah,
I can't get behind it. It's just a really long game. You know, I got to sit around and watch it for a while.
You got to prepared to make an
I
afternoon.
mean, it just
of
seems like an
Yeah, it's a
excuse to
long-
drink. Like, that's another thing that I've often said about this game. Like, when I go there, I see that everyone's drunk, you know.
Yeah.
When I see the channel, everyone's got a beer in their hand.
Right.
I'm like, how long have they been there drinking?
Yeah, nobody's getting through this sober.
Yeah, and
except for
then-
little kids with cotton candy or whatever.
Right. And then I read stories about people falling off the bleachers at the Cubs Stadium or whatever when I was a
damn.
little kid in Chicago. And I was
Really?
like, well, I guess my dad's never going to take me to a baseball game
Yep.
now.
Oh, never seen it.
Yeah. So,
Lucas is
yeah.
gonna be really upset to hear this.
Yeah, I know, but Lucas has also never offered to take me to a baseball game. No one's taken me to a baseball game, so
I think yeah,
yeah.
might need to make it happen. What's
Nah.
the?
Yeah, but you're not gonna do
Yeah,
it. and I'm not gonna. I'm certainly
Yeah, I'm
not
not
gonna
gonna do it.
Yeah, you're not gonna do it.
Yeah, I'd go if Lucas went.
Maybe if there's like a game that's like gonna be super cool that I can get drunk at and I have a way to get home, maybe.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of far. Always.
Yeah.
But
They're always far, right? That's the
Yeah.
fucked up thing. Why isn't it ever like one in just the middle of the town?
What's the? Didn't
It's a
Holly
bar.
Springs just build like a AAA stadium or something like that?
if so,
That might be your best bet.
yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever. I'm not pressed to see baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the Owls though, I mean, we can get back to that. I mean, so what was the transition kind of like? I guess what's the transition from? Or did you feel like it was a transition from making folk to making like more instrumentals, or are you doing both, or is it just a natural evolution?
Yeah, I think I'm just doing it all, and just I guess a deep curiosity about like trying stuff and a lot of excitement about trying new stuff. But I think it all informs each other. Like if you listen to that Yowls 2 record, there's a lot of traditional instrumentation here and there. There's the one song I can think of, Libby Rodenbow did some violin, sent me some violin tracks for it, and I put some banjo on it, and so it's like this kind of Appalachian mountainy sounding thing but it's got a break beat on it and like some atmospheric stuff going on that's like, I don't know. It's all, to me, it's all connected, and it's all just like exaggerating one corner of the spectrum or the other.
Are there traits of folk music that bring out and complement other traits in hip hop for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I've always said that I think acoustic instruments and drums sound amazing together. Like any recording I've ever done that has an acoustic guitar or a banjo and drums, it's like hard to replicate that in a live setting. But I think those textures, heavier drums or vinyl sampled drums, just to my ears sounds great with banjos or mandolins or guitars or whatever. What else I don't know, they're both just huge vehicles for storytelling. So I think both of those traditions kind of center the vocal, which is ironic. I made these instrumental albums. But yeah, that connection to me is like, yeah, hip hop is about the storytelling, folk music is about the storytelling, and everything else is just supporting that.
Right. And the storytelling has to serve a function, usually as like a message, right? either of, at least in hip hop, in my knowledge of hip hop, the albums that I've listened to are either of protest or politicism, right? An idea of identity or a fight for a culture. Can you say anything about that in regards to your background in folk music? What is that music not representing, I guess, but what is it singing about?
Yeah, I think it could be for my personal music that I write. I think it's more exploring interior worlds or characters. Like, I don't think I ever write songs that are like, this is my confessional songwriter album.
Yeah.
This is my life. These are the 12 songs that.
So we're never going to see a Confessions Part 2
Right.
by Matt
Right.
Sorum, right?
Yeah, there has to be a little bit of
Separation?
yeah. There's, you know, and it's, I don't know, I think it's more like how fiction writers, you know, they're always writing a little bit about themselves or about their experience, but it's never like fully, I mean, it can be, but I'm getting off of what the question was.
Well, it's you're touching on, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the idea of persona, the idea of having an area outside of yourself to create the art,
Right.
in which you are not corrupting something that you are creating,
Right.
which is, I mean, that goes back a ways.
Yeah, and I think it's also it's both a conversation with what you've already written. Like, I find myself doing this a lot, having songs referencing little bits of other songs, and also referencing greater folk traditions. Like, there's a lot of like tropes or like ways things are described in folk songs that I find that sneak themselves into my lyrics. Things like silver daggers and I'd have to listen to some stuff. But anytime I look back at some of the songs I've written, I'm like, okay, that I can see as, you know, I took that imagery from, you know, this Mississippi John Hurt song or this old British ballad that's been sung for 400 years.
What life experiences are you experiencing in your everyday that feel like a folk song to you? I remember there's a movie, or not a movie, there's a show called Futurama. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
In which Bender is trying to write folk music, and he's singing about a train coming, and then the train comes and then hits him. And then he's like, now I'm actually living a folk life, and this sucks, and I hate it, and I wish it would stop. And so he creates a copy of himself to experience the folk songs, and then he can just get the proceeds from him dying from all the folk songs,
Right.
which is what folk songs,
Yeah.
if you live their entirety, will lead to, right? The
They're
blues.
tragic. Like,
They are tragic.
Yeah. Murder ballads and
Suicide, probably. I don't
Yeah.
know, because even if you survive some of these experiences,
scorned lovers and like all this.
who would want to live through that? Who would
Right.
want to go through such pain? That's why, why not write pop music where everyone is happy and getting laid?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. But I guess that's probably diametrically opposed to like the way my brain works.
Right?
You're digging into the darkness a little bit.
Yeah. What do you feel in your life is like the folk songs?
Oh God, that's such a good question. I don't have a great. The reality is probably none of it in that traditional sense. But little things happen that you can exaggerate into a more metaphorical thing. Or one more concise example that comes to mind is a song it's not released, but it's a song I wrote about this trip I took to Asheville. And this was like the most, I don't even know if not traditional folk, but it's like, this was like a surrealist story that like happened to me. And I was like, I have to figure out a way to write about that. But basically I was sitting in this bookshop looking at some stuff. It was like the first nice day of spring. I had like a little inchworm on my shoulder and I went to like release it on a tree. I was like, this silly little act of grace. It's like, I'm going to save you. And when I was out there, I heard a guy coming up humming Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire. And I'm like, wait, where's that coming from? And then all of a sudden he was just in front of me. It was this dude. He's like, "Hey, I'm a monk. Would you like some books?" And he like, he was just a big guy in a robe, and he had these books. It was like he appeared out of nowhere, and I was just like, just out of instinct, I was like, "Oh, no thanks." And he just shrugged and continued humming the song like right where he left off. And then I was like, thought to turn around and be like, "Hey, hang on, I should take one of these books. Like, this is interesting." But he was just gone. So it was like one of those.
All right, well, that guy didn't really exist. I
Right.
hate to tell you this, but what you were suffering from is known as heat exhaustion.
Right.
And it started with the inchworm. The inchworm was
Yeah.
also an illusion.
That was never there.
It was never there. You had a stroke, a mini stroke. And yeah, that monk
Damn.
was, yeah.
Damn. I suspected as much. This is the first time
That monk has been dead for 30 years.
Some say you can still hear him humming Johnny Cash.
That was Satan. That was actually your whole, that was the deal.
It was the Ring of Fire.
Yeah,
That
you
was
were
the
supposed
song.
to take one of the books, and he was supposed to make a deal, and it's inside the book is just a contract with him, and you just have to sign it in your own blood and then hand it back to him.
You'll find him next spring.
So I dodged a bullet.
No. You want that. You want
Oh.
that deal. You want the
you want the
you want
deal?
the fame. You want the fame with
Is
Satan.
it worth it though?
Yeah.
Your life's a folk song.
Right.
You want the
In order to make my life more like a folk song, that would have been the move.
yeah. Or is
Risky
that,
endeavor though.
it is a risky endeavor, but that is a crazy story. That really happened.
Yeah, it really happened. And like,
How hard did you look for the monk though?
not very hard.
Okay, so he
No.
probably just got in his Hyundai and like drove off.
I-
like a car.
Yeah, it like seems mythological in my
it
head,
does,
but it was
seems
like
apocryphal.
yes, it felt like this is a scene in a slightly surrealist like movie or something that is happening to me. It
Or
was
like a Bible.
those sometimes. Yeah, exactly.
Like
this
a-
is scripture.
Yeah, this
This
is like
means something.
a moment from scripture. Am I like it's terrifying. A little terrifying. Were you a little scared by the clarity afterwards of what had just occurred?
Yeah. Well, I immediately went to my notes in my phone and like
Oh.
wrote down all the details I could think of because I was like, if I don't, I gotta get this down. Like, this has got to be something.
This guy was he dressed like a monk?
Like barely, like half-ass
Barely?
monk.
Okay, half-assed
Like
monk.
jeans with like kind of a robe over it.
Oh shit!
He wasn't like,
Was this a white man?
it was a white dude.
I
Like,
wonder if
white
he was a
dude.
self-proclaimed monk.
right.
Yeah. You know?
Like-
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If this was like full Tibetan garb or something like that, I would have been like,
I
yes,
mean,
I'll
this
take
was
that.
out of here. I'm out of here. Like I would have been like, I am actually dead,
Right.
and this is the gateway, and I need to turn the other direction to go back to the living world.
Right.
I understand now.
Take your inchworm. Right. My hands are clean.
So you're from Grand Rapids, you said? Right.
Yes.
So, how far is that from Detroit?
That is, so I actually grew up in between Detroit and Grand Rapids. I went to school in Grand Rapids. But where I grew up was about an hour from Detroit. Grand Rapids is more like two and a half hours.
So-
Other side of the state.
Yeah, Detroit has, pretty proclaimed like hip hop history, I'd say. Do you draw like in particular from that area, or is it like when you were a kid at least? Or is it just more varied?
No, I think I think I was kind of a late bloomer in the being into hip hop. So when I lived in Michigan, I kind of missed that. But I did get hooked up with a lot of the cool like Detroit garage rock stuff, like Iggy Pop and the Stooges, the MC5, the White Stripes were from there. Like all of that stuff was super influential to me too.
Definitely heard the Stooges. I want to be your dog reference and the
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
the Matt Southern, yeah.
Glad you got that.
Yeah, that was funny. I was actually going to ask you about that, but
You know, someone else for the first, that's like 4-year-old song or something, and it was like the most silly, like someone commented to me after our last show, it was like they specifically pointed out the lyrics in that, and I was like, I like almost didn't release that song because it was like, this is the silly,
it was fun though. I
the
liked
silly
it.
song I wrote that like I finally found some music that's fun to play it to. But yeah, that's exactly the reference that was in my
Okay,
head.
that's
so
awesome. Because
good
I was
catch.
going to ask you about that. So I guess that's kind of your entry, probably a big entry point then for you into like rock music was like the Stooges, and I guess if you want to speak to like how those influences kind of impacted your own songwriting.
Yeah, yeah, pretty deeply. And like when I was in college, I feel like every year I would be like, okay, I'm gonna start this folk group this year. Then the next year group would be like, all right, I want to start a band that's like the Stooges, but faster, or like something great. Like I felt pulled between these different poles, like, and you know, had some projects in both of those arenas, but I never felt like you really had to separate them. I think our band right now does a fairly decent job of including that wider swath of influences. Like if you come to a show or like listen to some of the Matt Southern and Lost Gold, that's the band. If you listen to some of those records, it's like folk elements within this rock band, or this kind of trashy garage rock moments. And I've actually been recently on another poll, like, let's get heavier, and like we're finishing an album right now, and I'm just like, it's so hard for me to sit like in the moment and not be thinking like the next album and the next and the next. So if it like this one's taken a little longer than it usually does for us. So I'm like already writing for whatever I want to be the answer to this, which is fun, but it's makes it a little hard to focus.
So how long have you been working on the current album for?
We started laying down some tracks for this last fall. So we had our bass player Chris got married, and there's been a bunch of like busy stuff happening. We're half of us are another band called Kit McKay. That's with Pat Stovall fronts that, and that's just more of a straight up like country rock, Waylon Jennings type of band. So that scratches that itch. So that's been super fun. But all of a sudden, I feel like our group of friends are getting busier and busier. People starting more projects, which is great. But that's contributed, I guess, to this one being a little bit slower. And we've recorded this one kind of piecemeal, where our last few were like, let's rent an Airbnb. We'll, take all of our gear there, and in 3 days, we've got to be like, have everything done, or at least the main tracks done. So that definitely helps speed it up too.
So,
Have you been playing shows around Raleigh since COVID ended?
Yes. Yep. We got back to it probably in the middle of 2021. Started playing again, and I mean, they didn't start feeling normal until like middle of last year, probably.
What's some of your favorite venues to play at?
Oh, great question. Kings comes to mind as like, man, I've had so many great times there. I lived in Raleigh since 2010, and like probably some of my most favorite shows, both playing and seeing just kind of mid-sized bands and stuff, were at Kings. But the Poorhouse is also great. Love it there. They've kind of really like the warriors that kept their business open this whole time. I like, hats off to them, putting live music on all the time.
I'm stoked on them opening a vinyl press.
Yeah.
Too.
I just saw that.
Oh yeah, we had heard about that a little while ago, but I'm like, we want to talk to them about that. It's dope.
Yeah, you should get him in here and
Yeah.
talk about that. It'd be super
love to.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, but that's. I mean, I'm really interested to see how that goes. Like, just like the vinyl pressing thing, because that could be really great for a lot of local artists.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be vital for a lot of local artists. It's not just a tool that you can hear the music from. It's a tchotchke, right? It's a thing that you get to
Right.
keep.
Yeah.
So hopefully that brings people not just into the city of Raleigh to come and look at this little oddity that is a musical printing shop, but also, come see the artists that are making the music.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm very curious to see too if they cater specifically towards local artists, which I'm kind of assuming they will, because I think the big problem right now is like the vinyl backlog. Like even if you have the money to put, drop a few grand in for pressing and mastering and whatnot, The lead times are like over 12 months, and it's
Wow.
like,
It's insane.
so like, there's no way I could wait to record an album, wait 12 months until I release it. Or like, I know a lot of people are doing like, we'll release it when the vinyl comes in, we'll release that. But man, that's tough. So hopefully this will fill a gap that's needed in some kind of local production.
Do you like playing any other venues besides King's?
Oh yeah, I
or
love
House?
all the venues. Night Rider is one we've played at a lot recently. It was again one of the first ones you could play in after the pandemic, or after stuff started opening back up. That's great. I played so many shows at Slim's over the last 13 years. That's always been an amazing place, and an amazing place to like, if you have nothing, like you just don't even have music out yet. Like, at least when I started out, it was like a place they'd be like, "Come on in, we'll put you on a bill." Like, it was,
That's nice. They believe. They believe.
yes.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, those sorts of different tiers of venues are so important to like a community.
Yeah,
To be
yeah.
like, because everybody should be able to go get a show somewhere and start getting their feet wet, start meeting people, and but yeah, and then work your way up to a little bit the bigger venues in the area. And yeah, that's, I mean, you'll never see me headlining some big show or something. Like
Right.
King's is it. That's, and I'm fine with that. That's great.
You've also been doing the Live from the Nest, right?
Yeah. Seen it on
yeah.
YouTube.
What kind of spurred that? What's the idea with that? I mean, I know the idea, but
Yeah.
just to,
So Live from the Nest, for anyone listening who is not familiar, is a video series we produce out of my living room in Raleigh. We just invite in local artists, mostly acoustic artists, but people playing a stripped down set. We give them a good video of that. It's a YouTube series, so we got it on YouTube. We also have an Instagram, Live from the Nest NC, something like that. You should be able to Google it.
you'll find it if you type that
But
in.
yeah, this was really a project of like community building for us. It's something like, just like you guys were saying about starting the forum. I can't remember if that was before the podcast started, but of starting something kind of that you wish existed, or something you could be a part of. And I think that's a part of getting a little bit older and realizing like, oh, you can make things that you wish, platforms that you wish existed for yourself, for other people. And it's just been super fulfilling, more than I would have imagined. But also it's like a great way to connect with people and connect other people with people.
It's like something to the importance of community, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think we've had people book shows together that were on the video Live from the Nest series. We book shows with them. We're kind of dipping our toes into starting to put together some shows, like a Live from the Nest presents. So we got one of those that I can officially talk about, but there's a few more in the works that there'll be some news on soon.
what's the one?
The one is we're playing at Pine State. It's Kit McKay, myself solo, and Greg Hughes. And Greg Hughes, you should check out, because he's also doing some great community building stuff. He put together this, it's called Raleigh Roundup. It's an open mic series at Pine State. So he had the connection with that venue. And I was like, hey, we need more places where you can go play like a chill, laid back acoustic set. So we set this show up. It's in April 21st, I believe.
That's that Friday, probably.
Yeah, double checking here. April 21st, yeah. Pine State Coffee in Raleigh. There's the plug. But we got a couple more cool things like that coming up, and I don't know, it's been great. I feel like I've had a much more balanced, creative diet in the last year, and which is really needed after like how isolating the pandemic was to a lot of musicians and creative people. And
Yeah, how was like in terms of the pandemic? How did that kind of alter your creative aspect? Like, I mean, in terms of like were you a little stilted? I mean, or was it like I'm at home, I can do as much as I want? Kind of different people, were kind of affected differently, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think all of the above at some point or another. Like when we first got locked down, I had an entire album to mix, so I was like, well, okay, this is gonna be great. So we'll be shut down for like 2 or 3 weeks.
No, we'll be back
I'll
to
have
normal.
all this extra time to mix this, and then so like, me getting done with that mixing project and the realization of, oh, this is gonna go on for a long time, kind of coincided, and so it was like, oh, this is gonna be super depressing for. So yeah, it's also like just super sad. I mean, obviously, people have it way worse, and lucky to have employment through it and not have any major sickness in my family. But yeah, it's definitely depressing for someone who gets a lot of fulfillment from
playing music around other people.
playing music around other people
Yeah.
and being creative with people and like.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I went all Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. I lost like 20 pounds during the pandemic. Just started
Damn.
doing push-ups and sit-ups, and then started like finding people to box. Kind of went a little insane.
He's super into exercise.
Yeah, I've always been into boxing, but now I just like to.
This is the part where Jack's gonna ask you if you want to box.
I don't know.
Oh,
He
shit.
seems like a pretty chill guy. I don't think he wants to box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Probably
'cause
not.
none of us do want to box him.
Right. He's looking for a sparring partner.
Yeah.
I have one. I have
Oh,
several
you do?
now,
Okay.
but it's just I
Do
don't
they
feel
show
like
up?
you want to. Some of them.
Well, that's good.
Some of them.
I'd
feel like
be
you've got better things
I'd be there for like the jump rope.
Yeah, that's a trick. That's a trick
Maybe.
to learn. It takes about 2 weeks to learn that.
Really?
I still can't really get that down. But that
Is it
doesn't-
like speed or the heavy rope?
No,
or
no,
both?
no. It's the skip. They call it the Rocky skip now, but it's older than that. It's like heel to toe, and the rope passes underneath, and you just shuffle like that over and over again.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a good workout though.
it's a great workout. Yeah. And then drop, do 200 sit-ups, and then 50 push-ups, burpees. Damn. And then you can get in the ring because you're tired. Everyone's tired. You're not gonna hurt anybody because you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd just check out right there.
Yeah.
Do the 200 sit-ups, 50 push-ups, some.
And go home.
Yeah.
Be like,
Be like that.
get the bag. Be like, bye guys.
I got everything I needed here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So with the new Matt Southern and Lost Gold album are upcoming.
Yeah.
Do you have a release date for that or?
We are not officially, but we are shooting for a release show sometime in June. So I'm trying to lock down a venue and a date for that, which will also be kind of a like locking that in and be like, all right, guys, we gotta finish it. So yeah, June is a safe bet, I think.
And what I guess what kind of songwriting can we expect on that? What kind of where'd your mind go in writing this album?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm kind of discovering it as I go along. Like, I feel that way with songs a lot. Like, I don't really know what they're about until maybe a couple months later, or seeing them against the other ones that you're writing in this time period. But one thread I'm finding in this one, just more in the production side, is this vinyl sampling spilling into the live band recording stuff. So in a couple of the early songs that were sounding good to me, I was like, oh yeah, now we got something going that's cooking pretty good. Like one of them, I had sampled like this bossa nova hi-hat pattern
Yes.
from a record and and the guy's like literally going like, he's saying it like with it, and it's like looped, and it was like, we just wrote a song around that, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is something.
Those people were on cocaine.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
They're
You gotta be like,
But
just
in-
my God.
in the
you're so happy.
complexity of like
64th notes and just you're sitting there on the hi hat, just sitting. Oh my God.
playing
Fantastic.
40 different like augmented chords in a song, and like trying to learn that stuff by ear as like a kid, being like, okay, I think I know a lot of chords, like, and being like, what in the hell, or what how do you play this stuff? But yeah, that's been a definitely a thread through. I feel like, and I'm like literally this morning before I came here was like doing more of like taking this. I had the song that's like a real strummy, kind of countryish, harmonized song that's more like the Everly Brothers sort of thing, but with a little more surreal lyrics. And it was just like, I don't know, this one's not doing it. But today I started adding some samples on it and some stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, that's all of these songs kind of need some of this. I feel like for it to work.
What you got?
Well, I was gonna ask honestly, with the MySpace for a second, honestly.
So back to boxing.
Back to boxing.
Oh, you want to talk about
Is there
boxing? Hell yeah.
fill in space? Is there
I do a lot of things now, but I used to be like purely into striking, like so. That's always fun. Now,
so for the layman, that's just
legs
hitting the bags?
Yeah, no, I mean like striking people.
Oh.
Still striking, but no grappling. Now I do grappling.
Oh,
So I've
gotcha.
been picking up on some wrestling and some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because of my sparring partner who insists that we do everything.
Damn.
So
That's
it's
fascinating.
been a good time. Do you do anything? I know you're.
Just normal exercise
Just
and
normal
jogging
exercises.
stuff. Like,
You ever been in a fight?
oh God, when I was a kid.
You
Probably
were a kid?
5th grade was the last time I was in a fight.
Are you winning, son?
Was
Did
that
you
at
win?
Yeah, I mean, for whatever you can say,
A children's
bunch of-
victory is. Yeah.
What?
9-year-olds
Did you
kicking
get in
each
trouble
other's
for
ass.
it? Or was it different time?
No, I don't think so.
That's
I
cool.
think there were a lot of like playground fights that were just like, I mean, these kids are so small and weak that like they're not really doing any serious damage, but
Yeah,
you know,
some-
you get a couple
some-
punches
yeah.
in, and it's
Yeah, that's it.
you dust yourself off and go back to class. Like,
I mean, Mike Tyson was beating up people at 11 years old. So
oh, I bet that was a different story.
that's a different child. That is like
Different
that is
child,
a
yeah.
different child. That is a full-grown adult, basically at that age, right?
So that's a fascinating connection, actually, because so our last Matt Southern and Lost Gold album was called "The Songs of Edward Leary," and this was I'm probably slowly getting back to the answer of an earlier question you've asked about how folk music and everything ties in. But that record had much more united lyrical themes. It was basically trying to create this myth of this Edward Leary guy who was one element I used was I was always trying to write this song about Mike Tyson when he was like, you hear the story where he like kept birds, he kept pigeons.
Yeah, pigeons,
And
yeah.
he flew pigeons.
Yeah.
And like kind of his like villain or superhero
They
origin
would come
story.
back to him?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he has carrier pigeons.
Yeah,
the
in New
rooftop.
York, you know, they'd have
Yeah.
cages. It was like a big thing. You'd race pigeons and stuff. But, you know, just the juxtaposition of this, you know, super angry, buff dude thinking about him as a little kid with a pigeon. Anyways, I think the story I heard was that, like, one of the bullies at the school took his pigeon and, like, either broke its neck or ripped its head off or something. And, like, I remember hearing Mike Tyson telling that story as, like, this something snapped in him. And, like, that maybe that was the first kid he beat up or something. I don't know. But anyways, the weird connection is
Yeah, that makes sense.
I tried to write that song for years and couldn't, and ended up working on this project, the Songs of Edward Leary, and trying to build this whole mythos of this outcast character. And one of the songs I ended up writing was called Carrier Pigeon Fortune Teller. And so it was basically about, that specific incident wasn't in there, but it was about Edward Leary as a young kid keeping carrier pigeons, and one of them coming back basically with like, it would come back with like fortune cookie fortunes and like just say cryptic things to him, like
Oof. I hope your story didn't end as well as, well, I guess Mike Tyson, he's good ups
He's
and
fine.
downs.
ups and downs. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so he's releasing an edible that is shaped like Holifield's ear.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the part you bit off?
Yeah,
The whole ear?
the whole ear with the chunk missing that he bit off.
So messed up.
Let's, I guess that's capitalization.
I mean,
it's a
Holyfield.
marketplace, I guess.
Holyfield is getting 15% of the profits.
Is that true?
Yeah, they went in on it together. I mean, I think it's hilarious, but some people might find it in bad taste.
So is this like it's a small little guy, right?
Yeah, it's an edible. It's a weed edible.
Yeah.
Can't be too big.
Yeah, it's the size of an ear.
Like the size of a
Size
real.
of-
It was
The
like,
size of a real ear.
you're gonna want to cut that up a few times.
Yeah. You don't want to take that whole thing.
It's a gummy, you know, so you might want to just bite it a couple times.
You or
Oh,
yeah.
is it really
Yeah.
a gummy?
Yeah, it's a gummy.
Oh, you gotta bite parts off.
Yep.
Oh, that's fucked up.
What'd you think it was? Chocolate?
Yeah.
That's racist.
Why? I like chocolate.
Don't worry, we'll edit that out.
Yeah.
We'll edit that out.
So the next Matt Southern Law School show won't be till June, probably then. Are you guys gonna play in the meantime?
Yeah, good question. There's nothing on the radar. We've got a couple acoustic shows, like stripped down things happening. Then we've got some Kit McKay shows. We're playing at Shikori Hills with Kit McKay. Not sure what day yet, but that's the first weekend of May.
I know Lucas is going to be at Shikori. We talked about possibly going for one day.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going to New York. I want to save up and actually be able to go to Shikori.
Yeah.
Have you played before at Shikori?
We played with my band in 2019. So that was my first time there. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Okay.
I sadly had to work early the next day.
What do you do for a living?
I work in the parks. I work for Wake County Parks.
Lucas does. Yeah.
Yeah, same with Lucas.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, he's in Raleigh.
Is he Raleigh? Yeah, I think he's Raleigh.
Raleigh.
It's like the fields.
It's a great, yeah, exactly, same. Like, I don't know, it's a great job, I guess, for my temperament, like, to be able to just go work with your hands, do physical stuff. When you're gone from work, you're gone. And you're not taking work home. It's not like a, thing where you're taking calls at home, or it's like eating into your personal time, so. Yeah. It's a nice marriage of the creative life with working outside.
What's your favorite guitar solo of all time? Mine is Eruption by Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, damn.
No, actually, no. Eddie Hazel, Maggot Brain.
Ooh, okay.
Shit's lit.
That's solid.
Yeah.
What's the Neil Young song where he just plays one note? I forget which one that is. But to be a contrarian, that's the sort of thing I would
lit.
I would say.
I mean, I would drink to that.
I'm sad that I can't tell you what. Was it Cinnamon Girl? I don't know. I feel like a bad fan for not being able to say that, but that's the one I picked.
You're going to hate me, but I've never listened to a single Neil Young
Well,
song.
you can't on Spotify anymore.
Oh yeah, he took himself off, right?
Yeah, it was a bummer. I was literally in the middle of a deep dive of like catching up on all the albums I missed. I'm like, oh, thanks, Joe Rogan.
Wait, what happened with Joe Rogan?
I think that's why when Joe Rogan came on, is that when he left, or?
Yeah, well,
I don't know the exact backstory behind
it's
why
because
Neil Young left.
Spotify was throwing all this money at Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan was
100 million, right?
bringing like conspiracy theorists on that were like,
Yeah.
vaccine deniers and
I mean, he talks to, in fairness, he does talk to everybody.
yeah.
It's not
But
his
Neil-
fault that he
right.
wants content.
Neil
right?
was
They threw money
That
at
was
him.
Neil's thing, though.
that was the line in the sand for
Yeah.
Neil.
But they threw money at Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan needs content for the monies. Can you blame
I'm not a
him?
Joe Rogan fan, but it's.
I mean, it's money.
But
Money corrupts everything. Like, I would have conspiracy theorists go to my house if someone paid me money.
maybe would you?
Yeah,
I'm not going to condone. I would not condone anything they said, but to just come over and
right.
Well,
just be content.
Neil's drawing his line against you now.
Yeah.
Well, Neil
Did you
Young.
return all those CDs?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I.
Dude, if I imagine if you,
But I'm
like,
talking like 50, and then next week 50, and then the next week.
well, here's my thing, right? Here's my thing. If you like didn't return one CD, would they
Yeah.
let you check out another 50?
Probably not.
Until you return that one
Right.
CD, right? Yeah. So yeah.
Were you the only? Not to harp, but like, were you the only kid? Who like,
I'm
Because
sure
this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was as crazy or over the top as I was with it. I'm sure there were, but
you didn't tell your friends,
I
would've
think they
started
knew. I
also.
think I like.
or
I
were
don't
you
know.
the source? They were like, he's gonna get 50.
Yeah,
We don't
but
need to.
then again, they were like much better at up to date technology than me. Like they were,
They had
probably
iPods.
it was probably onto torrents by then, and they were doing that like I was always late to catch up to that stuff.
They had MP3 players, and you still had your CD player.
Right, I had
walking
my
around.
Discman. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm listening to this album. Have you listened to this album?
It's anti-skip, so it's
yeah.
like I can jog with this.
Nah, man, nah. We're listening to individual tracks that we enjoy from different albums.
No, start to finish.
You look at them weird. They look at you weird.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning.
It's been a long line of divergence since then.
I love listening to albums as a whole. I feel like that art has been lost somewhat due to the singles being worshipped as the real moneymakers. But we still get albums like Damn by Kendrick Lamar, won a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, there's still hope.
Yeah.
I guess, do you find yourself still listening straight through like you did as a kid then? Or is
Almost exclusively, almost to my detriment. Like, the good things of that is that I always find on repeated listens or a song or two that are like the weird outliers of the album that I'm like, this is my favorite one on here, that I would never heard if I just went to their top whatever and played through. So yeah, I still like listening to the full albums. I'm like trying to understand the whole playlist method. It always seems jarring to me because I always have to know who's playing, who the artist is, and what the song is called. Like, so if I'm like listening to stuff at work and I've got it on a playlist, I'm like, I got to take my phone out of my pocket like every 3 minutes and check. Like, just my brain needs to categorize that stuff and be like, oh, okay, this came out this year, and yeah. So yeah, the listening to a straight album is much more conducive to relaxing and listening to music for me.
And who are some of the people that you've like contemporary or like newer people who you listen to?
Yeah, one of my favorite records from the last few years is this guy named John Andrews. His group's John Andrews and the Yowls. He came out with a record called Cookbook, I think a year or two ago. I was like, man, that's just right in my wheelhouse of like, it just sounds great. But also like too many to, I'll just freeze up and never be able to think of them because it's like, I feel like I'm in constant, that's another good and bad thing I think about streaming is like, I'm in constant discovery mode. I'm like, basically the streaming version of that 18-year-old in a library ripping CDs, like, I don't know if I can listen to this again. There's all this other stuff I gotta find. So yeah, that's definitely a battle that I fight daily. But yeah, John Andrews, I think he's got some more stuff coming out, more singles trickling out. But his records are great, just kind of laid back, rootsy sounding, but like, I don't know. When people are like imperfect, like perfectly imperfect, like they leave.
Yeah, leave some imperfections in there.
Yeah,
Just be honest to it.
Yeah, I've always been into that, and he's great at that. And just all of his sounds are really cool. Kevin Morby's stuff, his girlfriend Waxahachie, Katie, all that stuff is super awesome. What else?
I guess, do you have anybody you want to shout out? Any things you, like, I guess we've kind of gone through some upcoming projects and stuff, but.
And you have that show coming up on April 21st.
April 21st.
Yeah, Live from the Nest.
Yep.
That's going to be, so Pine State?
Pine State, yep. So that's like our first, we got some more Live from the Nest stuff in the works. But yeah, I'd shout out Live from the Nest, follow along there on Instagram and the YouTube. Yeah, we'll be announcing some more stuff there soon. And yeah, follow the band's page, follow Kit McKay. A quick shout out, I've been doing a bunch of production and engineering work for some different artists. Billy Barnes, the drummer for Ghost Blonde, started a rap project called Chomps. And so I've produced two tracks with him. It's been super fun. Alexander Robichaud is like a indie folk, kind of emo folk, great songwriter, amazing songwriter and singer. I've done a couple tracks with him. I did the whole Kit McKay record. I'm mixing a record right now from another friend I met through those guys, which I probably shouldn't say anything about yet, but there'll be a full-length record coming out pretty soon that check out our social media stuff for.
Okay.
Or only the main thing at the end, down take a Polaroid.
Sure, man.